small the land of Israel is, and where the battles took place, and where the things happened. And so you start to get a bigger picture. And so understanding geography, I think, is really kind of important. And one of the things I'm working on, and I'm about 85% done, but I'm going to give each of you guys, hopefully next week I'll have it finished up, but I'm going to give you a list of all the places that we're going, and then all the scriptures that kind of pertain to the places where we're going. And so you can spend time on your own kind of looking stuff up, reading up ahead of time. So when we go to the Mount of Olives or the Mount of Beatitudes or these different places, you guys are pretty much already familiar with everything anyway. And the interesting thing is we go there and do some of the Bible studies and stuff. I don't think there's any surprises for anybody. You're not going to go, oh, I didn't know that. You go, oh, and as I start to kind of teach a Bible study about these different places, you're going to go, oh, okay, I remember this, and you'll start taking a few extra notes or whatever's happening. But the cool thing is that your brain is going to connect what you've known intellectually for however period of time, and now you've got a visual on what that is, and it's going to burn those Bible studies in your brain in a way that you won't believe. It really does bring things alive. And so I'll try and have this done by next week and have it in you guys' hands, and then you can kind of look through that, kind of on your own. Because essentially that's what I'll be doing when we're in Israel and we go to these different sites. We're not going to do Bible studies everywhere. We're going to probably do 2 or 3, maybe 4 studies a day at some of the sites, but we're just going to go look, and I'll comment about where we're at or where this is in the Bible, that kind of stuff. But the Bible studies that you're going to hear isn't going to be breathtakingly new to you, because if you've been with us, when we studied through Matthew, like one time Grace and I were studying through Romans, and then 5 years later we did a family study going through Romans again. She goes, you said the exact same thing 5 years ago, and mind like a steel trap. And I go, yeah, that's because the Word of God hasn't changed, and so all we're really doing as we go is we're connecting dots in a different way to what you see. And so, a lot of you guys have been with us through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and the book of Acts, and Corinthians and Galatians and stuff. And so it won't be so different there, and it may not be quite as detailed even. It'd be just some different observations that we're going to make, and I'm really looking forward to that. What I kind of thought is, and I've got a number of books and stuff here, atlases and different things, and we'll eventually just kind of take a peek at them. When, according to the brochure, the financial deadline for our final payments is January 9th, and so that's when we have to get make sure they have the final payment, and then they have a copy of our passport. Some of us are already giving copies of passports, maybe already paid off. That's cool. But as far as the whole trip goes, we've all got to be paid up by that time. We have at present, I won't say an odd person, but we have an odd number of people coming, and so I'm going to try and talk to someone at Little Country Church Reading and a couple of places, and see if we can get one more person to come. What that does is it evens things out so that there's 2 in each room. Otherwise, one room will have to have 3, or that odd person out, if you will have to pay like an extra $1,000. And so that's how much it costs to, if you want to, say you want to go as a single person and you want to have your own room, all that kind of stuff. Well, the increased hotel fee, because they based everything on double occupancy, over the whole trip, it ends up being like another $1,000. And I was almost willing to pay that in the last trip I went on, and then somebody jumped in at the last minute, like, okay, because if you're going with a relative or your spouse or something like that, you kind of know what you're getting into. But when you go by yourself, like I've done a couple times, it's totally like a wild card scenario, and you get kind of assigned to people, and sometimes that works out great, sometimes it doesn't. But when God gives you lemons, you make lemonade, right? When you towards the end of this thing, the Inspired Travel is going to send each of you a package, and in that package will be a booklet on what to do and what not to do. It's basically some general information about being in Israel and traveling internationally, and how to protect some of your stuff. And they'll send you a strap for your suitcase. It's a big blue kind of neon blue inspired travel thing. We'll put them around our suitcases, so when we're in the airport, you see all these big blue straps come through, we grab them all, and it's easier to identify your luggage and stuff. And this is a trick I learned from Brian Blank, and I'm thinking about modifying it a little bit, but what he did is his whole group was issued one of these yellow bandanas. And what we did was you had to put it on your person somewhere, whether you wore it like a scarf or tied it on the back of your backpack or something, so that when we're in these high, a lot of people's areas, like in the airport, there's a couple critical areas where I have to know that you're all with us. I have to know that we're not leaving someone behind by accident, or someone's getting lost. They're in the bathroom when the plane's taking off, that kind of stuff. And so, by everybody having one of these, you're easy to spot because nobody else has these. Of course, we're going to be in Israel about the same time as another group that has these, so we'll see what happens there. But
let's pick a different color.
Well, yellow is really easy to pick out in the crowd because I thought about red or I want blue ones. Well, everyone's got blue ones already, and so we're going to pick up a couple extras. Actually, what I kind of want to do is I want to talk to the company, North American Embroidery, and get a shirt made up for all of us, basically like a polo shirt or something like that, kind of like we did the church sweatshirts and all that kind of thing. Get it made up like in yum yum yellow or neon green or something, so that we're easy to spot in the airport and say, hey, on the day we're in the airport, would everybody just wear this shirt? You can put it, bring another shirt you want to put in your carry-on if you don't want to wear it on an airplane or whatever. But I tell you what, it's so easy to spot people, but I have to be honest with you, it's easy to get lost too. Because what happens is, you're with the group, everything's going cool, and then you get distracted by something, and everybody else is just like, oh, that's cool, and keep walking, but for whatever reason, that's the big thing in your brain that day, and you stop, and you look, and go, wow, and you walk 3 feet this way, then nobody can find you. And either we leave without you on the bus, or we stop everything and find you. And I'm not really the leave you guys in a foreign country kind of guy mentality, so that means that everything gets held up. I tell you what, in the larger tours, and Brian Blank tells his group, you're all adults. Stay with the group, stay connected, because we are leaving. And they have. And then they say, it's up to you to find us. You have to find a taxi in Jerusalem or wherever we're at and say, there's a Sarel bus that's going to go to this location, and will you get me there? He goes, yes, for $50 or whatever. And so it's important to stay with the group. I thought about, and I don't know how anyone else feels about this, but our family has an app on our phone, a tracking app essentially. And I thought that when we get to the airport in San Francisco, about asking everyone to download this app, and we all sign into the same kind of club thing or whatever, and then we can all track each other. And so when I was in Israel this last time, because I had this already, Grace was able to track me, and my family was able to track me, all the different places I was going, hey, he's in Hebron today, or he's up in Galilee, and it's really kind of cool. But imagine if you got separated from the group, whether it's in the airport or somewhere else that we're touring, and you get turned around and you're not really sure where to go, you just pull up your phone because it worked in Israel, and you go, hey, 100 yards that way and around the corner, that's where the group is. And you could just kind of calmly walk around the corner and go, hey, I found you. And so, to me, it's kind of a cool thing. And then you could turn it off, when we get home or whenever you want to, and all that. So I think there was my family and Shelley and some other people were kind of tracking me when I was in Israel. And it was just kind of fun because they knew where I was at and, whatever. But so anyway, I might look into the shirt thing and see what it costs. If it costs like $15-20 a person, I think it'd be kind of worth it, especially for those high traffic areas, because we're going to get in some places, like when we go walking through the old city, we're like ducks walking through the place, just following each other. But you get to where we eat lunch and we kind of spread out in the different eating areas and stuff, and it's not so hard to get separated. But it's kind of nice to be able to look around and immediately identify, there's my tour leader, there's the pastor, there's the rest of the group, I'm okay. And so that nobody gets, lost or distracted or whatever.
Is there like a buddy system or anything? Like you have the person that you're with and you don't leave that person no matter what kind of? Or?
What we do is we're going to divide up into smaller groups, yes. and I'm going to actually appoint kind of smaller group leaders, like, you know, John and Deb and another couple. And so, you know, when we get on the bus, I'll say, John, are your people here? And he'll go, yeah. Of course, we're going to have a small enough group that it's like, we're here, you know, be really easy. But yeah, we're going to do something just like that. You know, because for me, like, as much as I'm going to be watching everybody, but I've also got my kids and grandkids. And so kind of want to make sure that, like, got to bring them all back. I mean, it's just kind of policy. The thing I want to do is I'm going to show you some books and stuff. And then what I really kind of want to do is at some point play some DVDs of tours. Pastor Chuck does extensive touring through Israel, and so a couple of the trips, they kind of videoed him. And so when we go to these sites, you'll see some of the things. And I may not do the exact same study. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. You know, it just kind of depends. But there's another guy named R.A. Ben David. And I think he's the best tour guide. He's acknowledged worldwide, actually, as one of the best tour guides in Israel. He teaches tour guides. He teaches pastors. He's just got this phenomenal reputation. And because of Brian Blank and Little Country Church Reading, they have a relationship, and so he does tours with this guy every year. And not regular. For the regular tour, he uses the guy's daughter. For pastor tours that I've been on a couple times, that's what this guy does, because he only wants to teach pastors. He wants to teach people that are going to influence other people. Anyway, he's got a series of videos, and the reason I would play him, not because he's such a great tour leader, so that you'll get used to hearing a Jewish guy speak English. Because one of the things, you know, when it's me, hopefully you'll understand me and I won't talk too fast or swear too much. When it's Pastor Chuck, it's kind of the same thing. You can track with Pastor Chuck. But when we have our Jewish tour guide, who, by the way, is a non-believer, when he's talking in his thick English, Israeli accented, you know, speech, it may take you a day or two to kind of like, huh? You know, and you're trying to figure it out. And that's just the name of the game. That's how it is. They have some tour guides over there that are from America. They migrated or immigrated to, you know, Ayala, to Israel, and so but they'll speak with a Brooklyn accent, or they'll talk like different, you know, somewhere else, and you can understand them pretty good. But this guy, as far as I know, was born and raised in Israel, and his accent will be something you have to kind of get used to. So what I thought was, if we watch a few of the videos where another guy with a similar accent's talking, it'll kind of, again, accelerate that process where you'll learn a little bit more. I have maps galore, and to some of you, I'll pass this around. This is a kind of a book that they give you in the package I told you about with this travel strap and all that. And it's just different things about how to travel. For on, if you just take a look at that and pass it along as you go. I've got maps like there's no tomorrow, and I love maps, and I like knowing where I'm at and geography and those kinds of things. And so there's different Bible atlases and things that you can get that will help you spruce up, if you will, on Israeli geography. And again, I think this is something that will be helpful on the tour, but not mandatory. I mean, quite honestly, you could go through and just take pictures of all the stuff and piece it together when you get home if you wanted to. I'm the kind of person, I just like to know where I am in relation to the ocean, or which way is north, that kind of stuff. And so this is a book. It's called the Satellite Bible Atlas, and Ron's got one of these. But this book is Russian satellite imagery. They contracted with Israel, but it shows all the different places in Israel. Then it's got Bible references about the different places, and so it's kind of a cool book. I know tours that take this book on the tour, and that's their guide through the whole tour. They walk around instead of a notebook. They just carry this thing, and they kind of work their way through history and all those different kinds of things. And so, if you want to get, if you were going to get any book, any atlas on Israel, this is one of the ones I would recommend, and it's easily available on the internet. You know, you can order it and get it if you want to. And so, kind of pass that to you, Ron, and same thing. And then this book, and again, this is a book I got in Israel. This book and the one I just handed off, they were both written by guys in Israel, And so I got first edition copies, just kind of like at the right place at the right time. But this particular book is a chronology of Israel from its beginning with Abraham to current day. And it shows all the history, all the wars, all the stuff. There's a little comment, the date, locations, that kind of stuff. And so it's kind of fun to bone up on Israeli history, because while we're at the tour, obviously we're going to be focusing on biblical history and events and things that take place. But the tour guide's also going to point out, well, all these rusted out tanks that are all blown up, that's from the 67 war. Or these tanks that are over here, these Syrian tanks that are all, that's the 73 war. And so they've got a rich history and a lot of modern conflict. And so you see the evidence of that. They leave that stuff out there so people will never forget, hey, we've got enemies all around us. And so, did you see the insurance thing in there, Sweetheart? Is that what you were?
I did, yeah. Do we need to get travel insurance to cover our trip, or
Well,
just in case?
different people, have.
Repeat the question.
Oh, the question is, because I was passing that brochure around about traveling and stuff. There's a pamphlet in there about travel insurance. When we sign up, we automatically have a policy for medical insurance that will cover any medical emergencies while we're over there. So a camel sits down on your foot, breaks your foot, like I saw happen to one lady one time. Yeah.
Stay away from camel feet.
Yeah. Or kids that are goofing around, jump off a wall and break a leg. That's all covered. The bad part is, and here's the bad part. If something happens to somebody physically, an injury or a sickness, sadly, you never get to suffer alone. Typically what happens is, if you have to go to the hospital, we're not going to leave you in the hospital by yourself. So someone's going to have to come away from the tour and kind of, in a sense, babysit that person. Hope it's not one of my kids. But, that's the reality. We don't want to leave anybody alone. And so you'll be cared for. You'll be taken care of financially. Now, trip insurance is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Trip insurance is you buy a policy that Inspired would point you to or provide. And basically you pay a $50 fee or $100 fee, I forget what it is, and say at the last minute you got to cancel. Something happens and you just can't go, but you've already paid for your ticket. We're coming up on the point of no return, actually. If you decided that today you couldn't go, it's a $400 per person penalty because they've booked hotels. They've started making arrangements with the airport and all that stuff, and so you can still get that kind of insurance though if you've got some trepidation about whether they'll actually make it or not. Anyway, so this book on history, I'm going to pass that around, and like I said, you can take a picture of it, and that's one of the most fascinating reads that I've read in quite a while, and I've read it twice now, just because I read it the first time and I want to go back and get it again. And then I won't bother passing all this stuff around, but I've got an old Oxford Bible Atlas. I got the Son of Light Bible maps. There's a smaller version that we have in the back of our Bibles, but these are add-on maps that you can put in the back of your Bible. There's a smaller version of this. I think Grace has one. I gave mine away. That's the one right there. Deb's got it. And, I like it because it's more accurate than the maps that come with your Bible. I won't have you go there now, but if you go to the back of your Bible and look at the Book of Maps, I always joke around. I've read the whole Bible, including the Book of Maps. And but if you look at your book of Bible maps in the back and try to trace the Exodus, they do not take it across the Red Sea. Ever. And it's like, do you believe the Bible or not? And so this particular Bible map does, which is one of the reasons why I like it. And it's got other stuff that's more accurate as well. And again, I've got, I brought way more maps than I should have. But we're going to spend half the trip, give or take, in Jerusalem. And the reason for that is because so much happens in Jerusalem. And so we're going to spend time going around Jerusalem, looking at it from different angles, and viewing it from the Mount of Olives versus Golgotha versus the Kidron Valley, versus the Cheese Valley and other places. And so we're going to see it from Nebi Samuel, where Samuel used to live, and you'll see the perspective looking back to Jerusalem from the coastal area towards the east, if you will. And you have, so you're going to get all these different perspectives of Jerusalem, and we're going to go through the Old City a lot of walking and stuff. And so you'll learn the geography of the Old City actually pretty well. And the first day of the tour, when we're actually touring, our first stop is going to be on top of the Mount of Olives. And you know that view where you look across and it's the golden dome of the rock, and then the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and you see the wall of the city. Those walls, by the way, were built in 700 AD by the Ottoman Turks. These are not the original walls of Jerusalem. But from this height, we'll be able to point stuff out in the city, and like this one white dome you see off in the distance. You see a lot of domes, but you see one particular white dome, and that's the main Jewish synagogue in the Old City. And then half an hour later, we're going to walk right up to it, and you'll be able to see it, and it's so cool. But so we're going to learn the geography of the Old City anyway as we go. What I want to do, one of my projects between now and then, I've got about 4 months before we go, is I'm going to get a bed sheet, a tan in color, and I'm going to lay it on the floor, and I'm going to draw out with Sharpies and stuff a map of the Old City, and put out all the points of interest that we're going to be going to. And so every now and then, you know, because these paper maps are great. I've got one that's kind of falling apart, and they're great, and I use mine to point of ruin them, wrecking them. But every now and then we're going to stop as a group, and I say grab a corner. Everybody grab, a couple of people grab a corner. We'll stretch it out and go, okay, here's where you are. Here's what we're looking at. You know, to kind of constantly remind us of where we are, what we're doing, and all that. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to making the map anyway. So, but and then
can you buy that one on the internet?
Which one's that?
The one, that book
The Sunlight?
of the history.
Yes.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find that. I'm sure. I'm positive you can find. I haven't tried it because I've had one, but I've seen other people that have gotten those, and they're pretty common in Israel too. One of the things I learned is like books like that, they're awesome, and when you buy them in Israel, then the problem is you got to bring it home. And what I mean is that's another 4 pounds in your luggage, and going there, you take one kind of big suitcase, your main thing, and it can't weigh more than 50 pounds at any point. And so I took a pretty good sized suitcase, but it was like only like 2/3 full because I had enough, much stuff. And but I put in a duffel bag, a cheapo Walmart duffel bag, and what I did was when I bought more stuff, I put that in the duffel bag, and then I made that my carry-on because you can have 2 carry-ons. And so I use my backpack as a carry-on, for just my regular stuff. And then when I buy books or other things, I use that. But what I was going to tell you is almost everything you see in Israel, you can buy online. And so you might see it, take a picture of it, get the ISBN number or whatever, and then buy it when you get home. They'll mail it to you for free. And sometimes you even find it cheaper. This map that I've got is my favorite all-time map of Israel. The first time I got it, it was $40 at Masada, and it was in the Masada gift shop. You get this thing unfolded, and it cost me $40. And at the time, I thought, man, that's a screaming deal. And my tour guide saw the map, goes, "Where'd you get that?" I thought the best map, and it's a modern day map of Israel. But you can find every location in the Bible that I've never not found a location on this map.
Spelling's a little different.
Yeah, the spellings are all different because it's all phonetic and stuff. But I bought this for $40 at Masada. Then I got home and I found it in a bookstore for $20. And so it's like, huh. And I was being all kinds of careful, put it in a tube and trying to make sure I didn't get it crushed and stuff, which eventually big deal because I ended up folding it up, like this. But Carta Maps in Jerusalem, I bought 3 of these a couple of years ago, $20 a pop, and they shipped it to me. And so many of the things that you'll see in Israel, book-wise and stuff, map-wise, all those things you can get online. And if you be patient, just wait till you get home. You save yourself some money and some grief with your luggage. Going out, you got to be under 50 pounds. Coming back, you got to be under 50 pounds. And so, either bring a duffel bag where you plan on. The first time you go, you buy a lot of souvenirs. By the third, fourth, and fifth time, you hardly take any pictures, and you don't do souvenirs like you used to.
So you're saying you have free space in your suitcase, right?
Exactly.
And can you check 2 bags?
What's that?
Is
Yes.
each person get to check 2 bags?
No, you can check one bag.
1 bag.
One bag.
Oh.
And yeah, if you read,
Yeah.
no, that's been there. If you read your brochure, it has stuff in there about how many bags you can check in, and one of the things is that you can only. That's Shirley who's watching online. Instead of a bed sheet for the map, maybe painter's cloth would work better.
That's heavier though.
Yeah, I just think about what I can fold up and
Wait, is
put in my
it-
backpack. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Can you
thank you,
ship
Shelley. I'm glad you're listening.
Hi,
Can
Shelly.
you ship it?
What's that?
Can you ship it? Can you
what-
ship things? Say you got
Oh,
too
yeah.
much. You can ship it from. You can.
I bought I bought Grace a birthday present at the Olivewood store. The Olivewood store is one of the last places that we'll hit as we're in Jerusalem, and then we'll go up to the north, and we'll spend a night. Actually, we'll go down to the Dead Sea, spend a night there. Then the next day we're going to go up towards the Galilee, and we'll camp out at a hotel there. And I found this awesome one-piece wood carving of Jesus in the boat with his disciples calming the sea. And it is big and heavy. And I go, but I want that for my wife. And they go, we can ship that for you. And so
They're Christian.
they're a Christian company. And so, yeah, you can ship different things. They'll ship it for you.
Can
It's
you
not
go to
Christian,
a?
though.
Do they have a post office we can ship from?
Well, typically you pay them to ship it for you. Otherwise, you're on the hook trying. The whole tour is not going to stop unless you want to get a taxi and go find the post office and all those things. So it kind of doesn't really happen that way.
Not enough time.
Not enough time. And so, and then I'll be honest with you. I bought this gift for Grace, but they charged me $300 to ship it from Israel. My wife just found that out for the first time. But for me, it was worth it at the time. But yeah, I don't usually talk about that stuff right now. But anyway, but how else are you going to get it home? I mean, I could have bought another suitcase and try to do it that way. But I'll pass this map around just so you can look at it. It's kind of tattered up, so be kind of careful with it. But if you look carefully, you'll see where I've highlighted stuff and circled things and written all over it the different places that I've been. And so it's really kind of fun, especially when you get home and you're reliving your memories, you're going through your pictures, you're looking at all that stuff. It's nice to have the big picture to know where you've been. And it makes it a lot more fun to explain to people. I don't know about you guys. Nobody enjoys their pictures as much as the person that took them. That's just but when I get on a roll with my Israel pictures, I'll go for hours while people's eyes roll back in their head and they've fainted and stuff and all that. But for me, it's like, and I remember that place, and it just brings it back to life for me. I think one of the things that we'll enjoy when we get back is having a couple nights where we just get back here and roll pictures across the TV set, or maybe make the ultimate Israel portfolio. And get everyone's pictures and who had the best angle and that kind of stuff. And so that'll be a lot of fun.
What year were you able to go into Syria?
What's that?
What year were you able to go into Syria?
I didn't actually go into Syria. I went up to the Syrian border and I touched the fence. It's one of those.
It's around on the other
I
side.
thought it looks like it's in Syria.
Well, I also use that map where I mark biblical sites in my studies and stuff. And so you'll see that I marked Petra and Damascus, other places like that, that are in Syria now or Iraq.
Is there sometimes you can go into Petra?
There is, not on this trip, but what that is it's a whole separate add-on type of trip.
It's an extension.
But they have to do it by surprise.
No, you have to arrange it all ahead of time. But the thing
No,
is,
I mean they don't tell. I mean, they can't broadcast when you're going to be in there because it's too dangerous.
No, they regularly accommodate tourists, and so it's a big tourist spot. That's where they get a lot of their money, and so they're really careful about making sure tourists are okay when they go to Jordan or different places like that. The police, the army, everybody, it's in all their best interest to make sure you have a good time and that you don't have any hassles. And if there was ever a thing with tourists being harassed or anything like that, word gets out so fast through the travel agents and stuff that the tourists just stop going, and then when the money stops, heads roll. They'll go find the guy that was.
But in Jordan, we can't take Israeli tour guides, so it's
Right, you switch over to a whole different company, whole different setup. And Inspired Travel can set that up, and they offered that for this trip. But I declined it because it's my first time leading a tour. It's my first time. This will be my 5th time to Israel, but it's different it's one thing when you're just along on the trip and you're following the group and you just kind of go on places. It's something else when you're organizing it and planning day by day how to, all the stuff for it and everything. And quite honestly, I didn't want the responsibility the first time out of the shoot to get into Jordan, my wife wants to go there in the worst way, and so we'll eventually go there, but not this time around. And so lots of books and videos on that we can learn a lot from. What I kind of intended to do at this point, because we can play maps and stuff, all night long. What I kind of figured we'd do is the time that we've got left, which is about half an hour, maybe just show a DVD of Pastor Chuck teaching in different spots in Jerusalem. We're going to have so much fun walking around different parts of Jerusalem. We'll drive around a lot of it too. We'll drive on the outer perimeter to places. We've got the Genesis Land Tour, which is outside of Jerusalem in the wilderness area in a place called Ain. And I can show you where that's on the map if you want. But it's about a 45-minute drive out of Jerusalem. And then after that, we'll go down to the Dead Sea area. We'll look at the caves in Qumran, the Dead Sea, and Gedi. We'll spend the night, and the next day we'll go north to the Golan and into the Sea of Galilee area and spend the night. Actually, the rest of our nights, 4 or 5 nights, in a hotel on the Sea of Galilee. And then we'll end up the tour in Caesarea Maritima, which is the port of Caesarea. There's another Caesarea because they were named a lot of things after Caesar. And so Banyas, the headwaters to the Jordan, we're up in the north towards Mount Hermon, that kind of stuff. And so we're going to be at the Valley of Megiddo. We're going to be overlooking the Valley of Megiddo. In Mount Carmel, which is super cool. And so a lot of places. And so you're going to get geography down one way or the other. But I think it's more fun to just kind of study the maps up and stuff. But I don't know how to operate you guys'
Is it on the Word for Today? Are you doing one of those? Because we have that on our TV. If it's the same.
It might be. I don't know. It's basically Israel on location. And,
yeah, that's what's on the Word for Today.
Oh yeah, okay. And I was actually looking at.
You showed me that. I saw Chuck's teaching on Israel.
What's that?
Yeah,
We can watch
they're
it.
really good.
I would watch all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Watch all of them, and
Are you going to the Golan Heights also?
yes, yeah. We're going to go up to. There's 2 mountains. Mount Bental and Mount Abatal. Mount Bental is one that all the tourists go to. It's a decommissioned Israeli military outpost, and but it's an awesome view of everything. And then Mount Abatal is just to the south of that, and it's an active one where they have all the antennas and all the soldiers and all the stuff. Can you go to the right? It's actually one of the last ones because we're not going to drop a.
Maybe we should try the DVD because our bandwidth is not enough.
So
Yeah, that and that together.
we can link.
Which one is it? That we're doing?
Let's do disc 3 of 4.
Which, like,
It's got Megiddo, Bet Shan, Gideon Spring, Shiloh, Mount of Olives. I was looking for the Mount of Olives. Probably to the right. Carmel, Beatitudes. Keep going, keep going. Yeah, you're coming up to it. Mount of Olives. Can you do that and still do the...
we're gonna see
We're
what
gonna find out
happens.
right now.
Shirley, text us if it fades out.
We can see it here too.
On a separate thing, did you see where Barry Stagner was talking about how they found something of Pontius Pilate?
A ring.
A ring.
Yeah.
Got his name on it. It would be his seal.
Wow.
Well, that's the second artifact, because for years they were saying that he was just a made-up character. And when we get to Caesarea, they found a paving stone that he dedicated, he paid for and built a library. Well, after he fell out of favor, they tore the library down, and they used the stones from that to build part of the amphitheater. And they turned it face down on a seat, right? Well, anyway, part of the amphitheater was destroyed, so they're going through the rubble, and they pick it up. Oh, look, nice flat rock, and they turn it over. Pilate's library.
Wow.
And so it authenticated the fact that Pilate was a real person.
Yeah.
Now this ring is the second thing. And they found that near the Herodium. And so,
God likes to seem to do that.
yeah. So,
It is starting.
Being over there with all the stars on it, how Smith could be an unbeliever.
Jerusalem, oh Jerusalem, why won't you believe in me? Don't you know?
can you pause it for a second?
Can't you see your king is this man from God?
Okay, what you're looking at is the Golden Dome, referred to as the Dome of the Rock. To the left of that, and I can't see it real good. I don't know if I can see it at all, but there's a gray dome that is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is, the Dome of the Rock is important, but the Al-Aqsa Mosque, for whatever reason, is more important to Muslims. But down below here, this is the Kidron Valley. Okay, this is taken from the Mount of Olives. That's St. Mary's Church with the golden spires. That's a Greek Orthodox church. And to the left of that is the Church of All Nations, and we're going to go there too. And we'll be in the Garden of Gethsemane, is between those golden dome things down low, and the church that you see, almost a little piece of it on the right, on the far left of the screen. And so we'll be in the Garden of Gethsemane. You know, it's, and the thing about olive trees, the trees that are there that you'll see, they're not the same olive trees that Jesus sat under, but the stumps are probably the same. Because what happens when they burn it or chop it down or whatever, the stumps stay alive, and then they'll grow up a whole new tree. The trees that you see there today are like 700, almost 800 years old, and they're the
baby trees.
yeah, they're baby trees. And so, other tours you take, we can walk this. This is the Eastern Gate. They found directly below that gate that you see there, because that wall was built in 700 AD by the Turks, the Ottoman Empire. But they found the original Eastern Gates down below that, 60 feet down.
Somebody fell through.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all Swiss cheese under that
Yeah.
city.
When we get to Jerusalem, we're going to actually, they've excavated around the Temple Mount, and you're going to be on the actual pavements that Jesus walked on. You're going to sit on the steps where Jesus taught his disciples. It's going to be so cool. Anyway, let it rip. I'll stop interrupting it.
As you look down from here at the Temple Mount, we actually are looking at the greatest problem in the world today. This is where the whole issue has come together. Because the Palestinian Authority wants full control of the Temple Mount. Israel is unwilling to give the full control to the Palestinians. And that has been the chaff, you might say, in the throat that has stuck the negotiations and has stopped the negotiations. It has brought people to the place of wondering, is it possible, even at this point, to hope for peace in the Middle East? Is there any answer? Is there any solution to this seemingly insolvable problem? In Ezekiel chapter 42, verse 20, Ezekiel is describing the temple that is to be built. And in verse 20 he said, he measured it by the four sides, and it had a wall around it, 500 reeds long, 500 broad, to make a separation between the sanctuary and the profane place. In Revelation chapter 11, as John is describing the new temple that will be built by the decree of the Antichrist, in verse 11 he said, and there was given to me a reed like unto a rod. The angel stood, saying, rise and measure the temple of God and the altar, and those that worship there. But the court which is without, which would be the Gentile court, measure it not, for it has been given to the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread under foot for 42 months. I believe that the answer to the problem will be brought forth by the Antichrist as he makes a covenant with the nation of Israel and thus be hailed by them as their Messiah, because he will give to them the opportunity of rebuilding their temple. If you will notice the east gate from here, as you look over the top of the east gate, you're not looking directly at the Dome of the Rock Mosque. Looking over the east gate, you're actually seeing an area that is north of the Dome of the Rock Mosque. And if it were not for the trees that are there, you could see, you see the arches on the far side. That is just straight east from the east gate. And in front of that, there is a little cupola that they call the Dome of the Spirits, or also the Dome of the Tablets. And there are many scholars who believe that that flat bedrock right there is actually the place where the Ark of the Covenant stood in Solomon's temple. So that the actual site of Solomon's temple was north of the Dome of the Rock Mosque. So you can see how that a wall could be built next to the Dome of the Rock Mosque, and that whole northern section of the Temple Mount could be devoted to the rebuilding of a temple, so that you could have both the temple there during the tribulation as well as the Dome of the Rock Mosque, separated, as Ezekiel said, by this wall to separate the holy place from the profane.
We won't be going
I personally believe that that is going to be the answer that will ultimately bring what they hope to be peace, but of course we know when they say peace, peace and safety, then comes sudden destruction. But the temple will be rebuilt, and I believe on that area that is north of the Dome of the Rock Mosque down there. And you'll notice that there is quite an area, a space there for the temple and for the courts, except for the outer court, which is being given over to the Gentiles. Also, from this vantage point, you get a great idea of the last night of Jesus with his disciples. Over in the distance, you see the tall tower with a sort of a grayish colored dome in front of it. That is the area right there where there is the upper room.
We're
And
gonna go
so
there.
Jesus had his Last Supper with the disciples in the upper room. They came from that supper past the temple over to the Garden of Gethsemane, and probably just right down below us here, where Jesus then prayed the 3 times that the cup might pass from him. Passing by the gates of the temple is where probably, because on the gate of the temple were these huge carving of the huge grapes, and where Jesus said to his disciples, I am the true vine, my Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me that bringeth forth fruit, and so forth, was probably prompted as they were passing the great gates of the temple with the grapes on inscribed or carved into the gate itself. Coming to the Garden of Gethsemane, and we'll be looking at that as we go down into the garden itself in a little bit. There is where he was arrested, and they took him back to the area where again you see that the upper room where the supper was held. Just down below it was the house of Caiaphas. So he was taken from the garden to the house of Caiaphas. This is where Peter followed him afar off. And then from there, they took him to Pilate, and just right about straight across would be where the going up the road. You see the road that goes in, that's called the St. Stephen's or the Lion's Gate. And if you continue up there, you come to the area where was the Antonio Fortress, where they brought Jesus to stand before Pilate to be tried. And then he went to Golgotha, and the area where you see a clump of trees, you see the tall cypress, and to the right, the clump of trees. That is the area of Golgotha. In our opinion, the Catholics have one inside the city, but he was crucified outside of the city. And so you get an idea of the Last Supper, coming over to Gethsemane, back over to the house of Caiaphas, to the Antonio Fortress to stand before Pilate, and then on over, and by 9 o'clock in the morning he was hanging on the cross. It was Passover day. You see, as the guides have probably told you, with the Jews, the day begins at sundown. So at sundown, Jesus had the Passover supper with his disciples. That began the day. Before Passover day was over, the true Passover Lamb of God was sacrificed. And the whole thing that the Passover Lamb was foreshadowing was fulfilled on Passover day when Jesus was there crucified for us. But we're here on a very interesting, we're on the Mount of Olives, and just over the other side of the hill is the little village of Bethany, and it's grown from just a little village, but at the time of Christ, the village of Bethany, and that is where Mary and Martha and Lazarus lived, and probably where Jesus spent his time when he would come for the feast in Jerusalem. They were close friends with Lazarus and Mary and Martha, and of course you know the scriptures concerning Mary and Martha, and Bethany was just over the hill. And that is where the events of this momentous day began. The day that all of Israel have been looking forward to throughout their history. They were looking forward to one special day. the day in which God would fulfill his promise and send the Messiah. The day that David talked about in Psalm 18, beginning with verse 22, when he said, "The stone which the builders refused has become the headstone of the corner. This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. For this is the day which the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it." Talking about the day that God would fulfill his promise and send the Messiah to the earth. That scripture really doesn't just apply to any beautiful morning. When you wake up and you see the sun coming up over the horizon, and you say, "Oh, this is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it." No, that was referring to one special day. The day that God would keep his promise and send the Messiah. But notice as the psalm goes on, "Save now." In Hebrew, that is Hosanna. Save now, or Hosanna. "I beseech thee, O Lord. O Lord, I beseech thee. Send now prosperity. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." Of course, referring to the Messiah. "We have blessed you out of the house of the Lord. God is the Lord, which hath showed us light." But then notice, interesting, "Bind the sacrifice with cords, even unto the horns of the altar." Talking about the Messiah. This is the day that the Lord has made. And yet, what a strange way to finish that particular prophecy. Bind the sacrifice to the horns of the altar. And so, before the week was over, the sacrifice was bound to the horns of the altar. This is the day that was predicted in Daniel chapter 9, when Daniel was seeking the Lord, and the angel came and revealed unto him that there were 77s that were determined upon the nation of Israel. And notice the things that were to be accomplished within these 77s. To finish the transgression, and to make an end of sins, and to bring reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to complete the visions and prophecies, and to anoint the most holy. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and rebuild Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. The street will be built again, the wall even in troublous times. But after the 62 sevens, the Messiah will be cut off, but not for himself, or receive nothing for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end will be with a dispersion. And the end of the war, desolations are determined. Daniel was in Babylon. They were
buffering.
Did you want to end at 7:30, babe?
This is probably a good spot to call it for now. What I kind of
captive.
hope to do is kind of pick out the DVDs that match up with our tour, and just kind of go through them. And then obviously Pastor Chuck's really easy to hear and understand. We're going to kind of mix them up with the other ones from REA, and again, so that you kind of get used to hearing his accent and those kinds of things.
So why are we not going on the Temple Mount? Gotta repeat the question.
We're not going to go on the Temple Mount because the Muslims have been given control of that. When Israel conquered Jerusalem in 1967, they took the rest of Jerusalem, I should say. They conquered the whole thing. In fact, they were actually going to blow up the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock to clear away the Muslim presence there. And Moshe Dayan canceled that order literally minutes before they pulled the trigger and blew it up. So since then, as a gesture trying to make peace with the Muslims, the Israeli government gave the Palestinian, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, Waqf, W-A-Q-U-F, and basically they're Jordanians that have administrative control over the Temple Mount. And so there's a gate, you'll go through security gates and stuff to get to the Temple Mount itself, the Wailing Wall and all that stuff, but there's another gate you go through, and you have to pass through Palestinian security. You go up a big ramp, you get to the top, then you go through another security thing, and where they search you. You're not allowed to bring Bibles. You're not allowed to pray. You're not allowed to gather together in big groups and have Bible studies. All these different restrictions that they put on everyone going up on, quote unquote, the Temple Mount. And so we got to go there in '99, and it's like if the guys are wearing shorts, then they can put on skirts because they're totally into modesty. Any of the women that were wearing V-neck shirts or short sleeves even, they made them put on these, ugly loner sweatshirt kind of things that smell bad from 1,000 people wearing it over the last week. Yeah, I mean, if you want to go on there, that's what you got to do. But my heart is, if my Bible isn't welcome, if my Jesus isn't welcome, then I ain't going. And so I can look at the videos and all that kind of stuff, And what's there? Granted, it's the Temple Mount, but they've built a couple different mosques. They got people following around, making sure that you don't, pray or, no personal public display of affection, all those kinds of things. PDA, used to hear that a lot in high school. And so that's why we're not going on the Temple Mount. It's just you'll be able to see it from different places. And the cool thing is, as we go through the Rabbi Tunnel, as we go through some different places in the Via Dolorosa, you're going to see the Temple Mount from different angles. And so you're going to get a real good feel for it, how big it is. It's gigantic. And you'll understand why they could, like Pastor Chuck said, that they could build a wall and still build the temple and kind of like keep everybody happy. It's kind of like other places that, I'd love to explore every inch of Israel and Jerusalem. But in the time we've got, we can't do it. And honestly, I didn't think it was worth going up there. And so I didn't put it on the tour. When you go to Shiloh, you can stand where the Holy of Holies was. Like, wow. There's places like that. But when the Muslims control stuff and they're so restrictive and invasive, I don't even like, subjecting the group to the stuff you'd have to go through to get in there. So.
Do you have to pay to go in there too?
Yeah, you pay for everything.
Okay,
Yeah, you pay for everything. But they make money on that, but they're also kind of jerks about it.
They harass you too.
Yeah.
The one of the mosque house, Allah has no son, Allah is God, and He has no son.
Yeah.
So to go into the mosque, which you have to pay to do that, you have to walk under that sign. That was their intent, that you would accept that, and then you would walk under.
Right. And it's kind of funny because
I don't know why anyone would want to go.
the son would have to be there first for them to complain about Allah has no son. So their logic is flawed. But anyway, next time we get together, we'll probably be a little more. Anybody have any questions just in general? I mean, travel questions or Israel questions? We're going to have a few months to kind of go through this stuff, so I don't feel too rushed or anything. So if you have time and you can pull these up on your own, knock yourself out. I think you'll enjoy it. I love watching them. But,
What airline are we taking?
Flying from San Francisco direct to Tel Aviv.
Which is how long?
Like about 14 hours or 16 hours. I forget what it is. We're on, I don't remember if it's Delta or American. Or I think it's United. It's United because they're partners with Lufthansa. And so we're going to fly over direct from Frisco on United, and then tour around for a week and a half. Then when we come back, it's on Lufthansa, and then we're going to fly from Tel Aviv to Frankfurt because Frankfurt's their main hub, and so you get like another country on your passport.
Oh, I've been there.
And
3 times now.
and then Frankfurt back to Frisco.
Sometimes.
And so it'll be a long flight. as we're coming up to the, as they're going to buy the tickets pretty soon and all that stuff, and I'm going to talk to them again. I'm going to talk to Bill Foliano tomorrow. You have the option of upgrading your seats. The first 3 times I went over there, I just did the regular old, whatever you get, kind of coach or, low class, no class. Budget seats, that's a good word. It was okay. But then somebody turned me on to, you can pay extra and get upgraded to Economy Plus, which doesn't make it any wider, but it makes it longer. You have more leg space, so their seat back is not in your face. But it's $400 more, at least it was last time I went, which I was really kind of saying, I'm going to do that. But now we're taking so many people in our family. And if I did it for my wife and I, we'd be separate because you're in a different section of the plane. And so my wife and I would be up in the cozy section, and all the kids would be packed like sardines back in the low budget section. And so we're just going to suck it up because Nick and I are the only ones that really need more space anyway, and it's just leg room. But anyway, that's an option. You can also fly first class, but just triple the price of your ticket. Go from there. But the thing is, the hard part is when you board the plane, you walk past the first class section, and they got like Barca loungers and their own spa. And,
That's cruel that they make you walk past first class.
But you know what? There's people that just got money to burn, and that's what they're doing. You know what? You're glad to get off the plane when you get off, but it's just what you kind of go through to get there, and so it is what it is. But you're free to, after they get up to the elevation, you can walk around. I did. I started doing laps. I needed to walk a little bit and move. And if you got a window seat, or if you got an aisle seat, you're getting up every 10 minutes anyway for the other 3 people that want to get up and walk around. So, I mean, it's just, they pack in. And so it's just kind of what you put up with. But anyway, they're going to be buying the tickets in the next month. And you have the opportunity, if you want to pay to upgrade your seats or whatever, you can do that. It's an option. It's not an option for me because we got 7 people going. But anyway, any other thoughts or questions? We got lots of time for all that later on. But Father, thank you for allowing us, Lord, to just kind of hang out together tonight in the fellowship. And we ask, Lord, as we set our hearts towards Jerusalem, Lord, set our hearts towards Israel, that you would help us to just to be able to take it in, to prepare our hearts and everything, Lord, to receive the word that we're going to receive while we're there, and the visual information, and to be able to just kind of collate that in our brains that results in our being able to articulate to other people, again, what an awesome God you are, and how faithful and how true and how good you are. And we see your faithfulness even in the survival of the nation of Israel. They wouldn't even be here, Lord, if it weren't for you. And we thank you for showing yourself strong in their behalf. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, John and Deb, thank you for hosting all this, and so much. It's a blessing to all of us.
So what's the next trip plan? We can go.
What's that?